Tech billionaire Marcus Chun thought his granddaughter was living in luxury with her stepmother. For 18 years, he sent $2 million to ensure Maya wanted for nothing. But when private investigators found the 18-year-old sleeping in a shelter in Los Angeles wearing donated clothes, Marcus asked one question that made stepmother Patricia's face go pale. "Where is every penny I sent?" If you've ever wondered how far some people will go for money, this story will leave you speechless. This is about betrayal, stolen futures, and a grandfather's fight to give his granddaughter the life she deserved. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because stories like this need to be heard. Now, let's get into what really happened. Hello, welcome to African Moonlight Tales. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends, and most important thing, turn your notification bell so you can get informed when I dropped another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you do if your spouse tried to kill you and you survive? Will you take a revenge or disappear forever? Marcus Chun sat behind his sleek glass desk on the 65th floor of his downtown Los Angeles office building, staring at the skyline he had helped shape over 4 decades. At 73 years old, he had built a tech empire worth $3 billion through software development and cloud computing solutions. His innovations powered systems across 5 continents, monuments to his vision and relentless work ethic. But on this cold November morning, none of that mattered. The man sitting across from him, private investigator Jason Martinez, had just delivered news that made Marcus's carefully constructed world crack down the middle. Jason slid a manila folder across the polished desk, his expression grim. Inside were photographs that Marcus initially couldn't process. A young woman with warm brown skin and thick natural hair pulled into a simple bun. She wore clothes that had seen better days, standing in line at what appeared to be a soup kitchen. Another photo showed her sleeping on a narrow cot in a crowded room. The final image captured her washing dishes in an industrial sink, soap suds covering her slender arms. Marcus's hands began to shake as he studied the young woman's face. Those eyes, that slight dimple in her left cheek when she smiled at someone off camera. It was like looking at a ghost. "That's impossible," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible. "Maya is supposed to be living in Beverly Hills with Patricia. She's supposed to be preparing for college. She's supposed to have everything she needs." Jason leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Mr. Chun, I've been doing this work for 27 years. I followed the address you gave me, the one where you've been sending money all these years. That's a mansion worth $2.3 million. Patricia lives there with her 2 biological children, both in private school. But Maya..." He paused, letting the weight settle. "Maya has been living at Hope Haven Shelter in East LA for the past 3 months. Before that, I traced her to a rundown apartment building on Sunset Boulevard. The landlord remembers her. Said she showed up 18 years ago as a baby with a woman who kept her isolated. Said he rarely saw the girl outside. Then 3 months ago, the woman moved out and left the girl behind with nothing. No notice, no explanation, just gone." Marcus felt his chest tighten. His doctor had warned him about stress, about his blood pressure, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. For 18 years, he had faithfully sent money every single month. Not once had he missed a payment. Not once had he questioned whether Patricia was doing right by his granddaughter. He had trusted her because she was family, because she had come to him in his darkest hour with open arms and promises. The day his daughter Sophia died remained the worst day of Marcus's life. Sophia had been his only child, his pride and joy, a brilliant young woman who worked as a software engineer and had dreams of starting her own tech company focused on educational apps. She had married David Martinez, a kind man who worked as a high school math teacher and robotics coach. They had been so happy together, so full of plans. Then David died in a car accident, struck by a drunk driver on his way home from a robotics competition. Sophia had been 6 months pregnant. The grief nearly destroyed her, but she held on for the baby growing inside her. She held on through those final 3 months, determined to bring her daughter into the world. But childbirth complications took her life, even as baby Maya took her first breath. Marcus had been in that hospital room, watching the doctors fight to save his daughter while nurses whisked the crying newborn away. He had failed to protect Sophia, failed to keep her safe, failed to prevent the unthinkable. In the days after Sophia's funeral, Marcus could barely function. He was a 70-year-old widower who had just buried his only child. Taking care of a newborn seemed impossible, especially with his demanding business schedule and his own crushing grief. That's when Patricia appeared. She was David's older sister, a woman Marcus had met only twice before. She came to his home with kind words and a reasonable proposal. She would raise Maya as her own, give the baby a stable home with her own 2 children who could be like siblings. Marcus would maintain financial responsibility, of course, because that's what Sophia would have wanted. Patricia made it all sound so perfect, so right. Your brother would have wanted this, Marcus remembered telling her, his voice hollow with grief. He loved Sophia so much. This baby is all we have left of them both. Patricia had nodded solemnly, taken his hand, and promised to love Maya like her own flesh and blood. Marcus set up the arrangement immediately through his lawyers. He would send $10,000 monthly to an account established in Maya's name, but managed by Patricia as guardian. Over 18 years, that amounted to more than $2 million. Money to ensure his granddaughter had everything she needed: education, health care, clothes, opportunities, a future. He signed papers giving Patricia legal guardianship, while maintaining his financial responsibility and the right to visit. But Patricia had suggested that visits might confuse the child, might make things harder. Let her settle into a routine, Patricia had said. Let her feel secure. We can arrange visits when she's older. Marcus, drowning in his own pain, had agreed. He told himself he was doing the right thing. He told himself this was what Sophia would have wanted. He told himself that money could fix what his absence couldn't. Now, staring at photos of his granddaughter, sleeping in a homeless shelter, Marcus understood the magnitude of his failure. He hadn't just been sending money into a void. He had been funding Patricia's comfortable life while Maya suffered in ways he couldn't yet fully comprehend. I need to see her, Marcus said, standing abruptly. His assistant tried to stop him at the door, reminding him of meetings and conference calls, but Marcus brushed past her. Jason followed close behind as they took the private elevator down to the parking garage where Marcus's Tesla waited. The drive to East LA took 50 minutes through Los Angeles traffic. Marcus watched the neighborhoods change outside his tinted windows. The gleaming towers of downtown gave way to modest buildings, then to areas showing the wear of disinvestment and struggle. Hope Haven Shelter occupied a renovated community center with fading paint and a sign advertising free meals and emergency housing. Marcus had donated to places like this over the years, written checks to ease his conscience, but he had never actually visited one, never truly understood what desperation looked like up close. He felt shame burning in his chest as he stepped out of his luxury car onto cracked pavement. Inside, the shelter was clean but worn. Metal cots lined the walls of what had once been a gymnasium. Women of all ages moved about quietly, some tending to small children, others just staring at nothing. The smell of industrial cleaner mixed with cooking food from the kitchen area. A woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and warm eyes approached them. Her name tag read, Mrs. Rodriguez, director. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" she asked, her voice carrying a slight Spanish accent. Marcus cleared his throat. "I'm looking for Maya Chun. I was told she's staying here." Mrs. Rodriguez's expression shifted from professional courtesy to surprised recognition. She knew who Marcus Chun was. Everyone in Los Angeles knew his face from tech magazines and charity galas. "May I ask what this is regarding?" she said carefully. "I'm her grandfather," Marcus said, the words feeling strange on his tongue after 18 years of absence. Mrs. Rodriguez studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "She's in the kitchen, working her shift." She led them through a narrow hallway to a large institutional kitchen where several women prepared food for the evening meal. And there, at the industrial sink with her hands submerged in soapy water, stood his granddaughter. Maya was tall and slender, with her mother's high cheekbones and graceful neck. She wore jeans that were slightly too short and a donated sweatshirt that had seen better days. Her natural hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore no jewelry or makeup. But even in these circumstances, she carried herself with quiet dignity. She laughed at something another woman said, her face lighting up briefly before returning to the serious work of scrubbing a large pot. Marcus's heart broke watching her. This was supposed to be a young woman preparing for college, going to prom, worrying about normal teenage things. Instead, she was washing dishes in a homeless shelter just to earn her next meal. "Maya," Mrs. Rodriguez called gently. "Could you come here for a moment, honey?" Maya dried her hands on a towel and turned around. When she saw Marcus and Jason standing there in their expensive suits, confusion crossed her face. She walked over cautiously, the way someone might approach a situation they didn't fully understand but knew might change everything. "Yes, ma'am," Maya said softly, her eyes moving between the three of them. Up close, Marcus could see Sophia even more clearly. The shape of her face, the way she held her head, even the cautious intelligence in her eyes. His daughter lived on in this young woman, and he had abandoned her to strangers and cruelty. "Do you know who I am?" Marcus asked, his voice cracking despite his efforts to remain composed. Maya studied his face carefully, then shook her head. "No, sir. Should I?" The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Should she know her own grandfather? Yes. Should she recognize the man who was supposed to protect her? Absolutely. Should she have grown up knowing she had family who loved her? Without question. "I'm Marcus Chun," he said quietly. "I'm your grandfather. Your mother was my daughter, Sophia." Maya's expression shifted through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, something that might have been hope, then a protective shuddering. "That's not possible," she said, taking a small step back. "Aunt Patricia told me my grandfather wanted nothing to do with me. She said you blamed me for my mother's death. She said you never wanted to see me." The room tilted slightly. Marcus reached out to steady himself against the doorframe. Jason moved closer, ready to catch him if needed. Mrs. Rodriguez brought a chair, but Marcus waved it away. He needed to stay standing for this. "That's a lie," Marcus said, his voice gaining strength through sheer fury at what had been done to this child. "I have never blamed you for anything. I have sent money every single month since you were born, $10,000 every month for 18 years. Over $2 million total." Maya stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. "I don't understand," she whispered. "What money? I've never had any money. I don't even have a bank account." Marcus pulled the folder from under his arm, the one Jason had given him that morning. He opened it to show bank statements, transfer records, 18 years of documented payments. Every single month, $10,000 deposited into an account established in Maya Chen's name. But the account manager, the person with access and authorization to use those funds, was listed as Patricia Martinez, legal guardian. Maya's hands trembled as she looked at the papers. Other women in the kitchen had stopped working, sensing something important was happening. Mrs. Rodriguez put a protective hand on Maya's shoulder. "This says $2 million, Maya said, her voice barely audible. "Where is it? Why am I here? Why do I have nothing?" Marcus felt tears he hadn't cried since Sophia's funeral began to well up. "That's what I'm going to find out," he promised. "And whoever stole your future is going to pay for every single day you've suffered." The next hours passed in a blur. Marcus insisted Maya come with him immediately, but she was hesitant. 18 years of Patricia's lies had taught her to trust no one, to expect nothing, to believe she deserved the scraps she received. Mrs. Rodriguez, bless her heart, sat down with Maya and spoke to her quietly in Spanish. Whatever she said helped, because Maya finally nodded and agreed to go with Marcus. She gathered her few belongings from the shelter, a backpack containing 2 changes of clothes, a worn college preparation book, and a photo of a woman Maya had never met but somehow knew was her mother. Marcus learned later that Patricia had given her that single photo when she threw her out, a cruel parting gift. As they drove back toward downtown, Maya sat in the back seat of the Tesla, staring out the window at the city passing by. Marcus tried to make conversation, to bridge the impossible gap of 18 lost years, but words felt inadequate. What could he say? "I'm sorry, didn't cover it. I didn't know," rang hollow. You should have known. You should have checked. You should have demanded to see his granddaughter. Should have fought through Patricia's excuses and delays. Marcus's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of one of his own buildings in downtown LA. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the Pacific Ocean and the glittering city below. The space was decorated with modern art and custom furniture, every surface speaking of wealth and taste. When Maya walked in, she seemed to shrink, as if afraid to touch anything or leave marks on the pristine floors. Marcus's housekeeper, Rosa, was a kind woman in her 50s who had worked for him for over 20 years. She took one look at Maya and immediately went into action, not asking questions, but simply doing what needed to be done. She showed Maya to a guest room that was larger than the entire apartment Maya had shared with Patricia. She ran a bath with expensive salts and oils. She laid out soft towels and a robe. Later, she would go shopping for clothes that actually fit, but for now she found some items that would work. Marcus stood in his study, phone pressed to his ear, calling in every favor he had accumulated over 4 decades in business. First call went to Rebecca Chong, the best forensic accountant in Los Angeles. "I need you to trace every penny of $2 million, Marcus said without preamble. "I need to know where it went, what it bought, and who benefited. And I need it yesterday." Second call went to his personal attorney, Thomas Kim. "I need you to prepare criminal charges for embezzlement, fraud, and anything else you can make stick. The target is Patricia Martinez. I want her to feel the full weight of what she's done." Third call was the hardest. Marcus dialed the number he had called monthly for 18 years. The number Patricia had provided for emergencies only. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and false. "Marcus, what a surprise. Is everything all right? I found Maya," Marcus said, his voice cold enough to freeze water. There was a pause, just a fraction too long. "What do you mean? Maya is right here." "Stop lying," Marcus said. "I found her in a homeless shelter. I found her washing dishes for her next meal. I found her wearing donated clothes and sleeping on a cot. So I'm going to ask you one time, and you better think very carefully before you answer. Where is the $2 million I sent for my granddaughter?" Another pause, longer this time. When Patricia spoke again, the fake warmth had drained from her voice. "I don't know what she told you, but I provided for that girl. She had a roof over her head, food to eat. The money was used appropriately. Then you'll have no problem providing receipts," Marcus said. "Bank statements, bills, school records, medical expenses. I want documentation for every penny. My attorney will be in touch." He hung up before she could respond. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He wandered his penthouse, checking on Maya every hour. She slept fitfully, even in the comfortable bed, as if her body couldn't quite believe it was real. Around 3 in the morning, he found her sitting in the dark living room, staring out at the city lights. "Can't sleep either?" Marcus asked gently, sitting in a chair across from her. Maya shook her head. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up back at the shelter, that this is some kind of dream or trick." "It's real," Marcus assured her. "And I promise you, Maya, you're never going back there. You're never going to be hungry or cold or alone again." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "She told me you hated me," she finally said. "Aunt Patricia. She said my birth killed my mother, and you blamed me. She said you wanted nothing to do with David's family after he died. She said the only reason she took me in was out of Christian charity, even though I was a burden." Marcus felt rage building in his chest, the kind that made him want to break things. "None of that is true," he said firmly. "Your mother died because of a medical complication. It wasn't your fault. It was nobody's fault. And I never, ever blamed you. You're all I have left of Sophia. You're precious to me, even though I've done a terrible job of showing it." Maya looked at him with those eyes that were so much like her mother's. "Why didn't you come see me? In 18 years, why didn't you visit even once?" It was the question Marcus had been asking himself since that morning. "Because I was a coward," he admitted. "Because I was drowning in grief, and I convinced myself that money was enough, that as long as I sent checks, I was fulfilling my responsibility. I let Patricia tell me that visits would confuse you, that you needed stability, that I should wait until you were older. And I believed her because it was easier than facing my own pain. But you sent money? Maya asked, still trying to understand. Every month. $10,000. I have the bank records to prove it. The account was in your name, but Patricia was the manager. She was supposed to use it for your care, your education, your future. Instead, it looks like she used it to build her own comfortable life. Over the next few days, Rebecca worked her magic with financial records. What she uncovered was damning. Patricia had indeed been depositing Marcus's checks into the account in Maya's name, but then she had been transferring the money to her personal accounts and spending it freely. The house in Beverly Hills, purchased 5 years ago for $2.3 million, paid entirely with funds from Maya's account. 2 luxury vehicles, also purchased with Maya's money. Private school tuition for Patricia's biological children, both attending prestigious academies at $40,000 per year each. Family vacations to Mexico every summer, staying in 5-star resorts. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, regular spa treatments. Patricia had been living like a wealthy woman, while Maya wore donated clothes. But the cruelty went deeper than financial theft. Jason's investigation revealed that Patricia had deliberately isolated Maya. Homeschooling wasn't about providing quality education. It was about control. It kept Maya from making friends who might ask questions. It kept her from teachers who might notice neglect. It kept her trapped in that small apartment with no knowledge of the outside world or her rights. Patricia had provided the bare minimum. Enough food to keep Maya alive, a place to sleep, basic clothes. But there was no love, no encouragement, no investment in Maya's future. And when Maya turned 18, Patricia simply discarded her like trash, told her to leave and figure out her own life. Gave her that single photo of Sophia and nothing else. No birth certificate, no social security card, no money, no support system, just abandonment. Marcus learned that Maya had spent the first month after being thrown out sleeping in parks and public libraries. She had eventually found her way to Hope Haven, where Mrs. Rodriguez had recognized something special in the quiet, polite young woman who asked for nothing but was willing to work for everything. Maya had been studying for her GED at the library during the day and working in the shelter kitchen at night. She dreamed of college someday, maybe becoming a software engineer like the mother she never knew. But without resources or support, those dreams seemed impossibly distant. Now, living in Marcus's penthouse, Maya was slowly learning what it meant to be cared for. Rosa made sure she ate regular meals. Noticed she liked her eggs scrambled and her toast lightly buttered. Marcus took time away from work to sit with her to tell her stories about Sophia. He showed Maya photo albums he had kept hidden away, too painful to look at until now. Videos of Sophia as a child, as a teenager, graduating from college, meeting David. Maya watched everything with hungry eyes, absorbing details about the mother she had been denied. 2 weeks after finding Maya, Marcus decided it was time to confront Patricia face to face. His lawyers advised against it, said to let the courts handle everything. But Marcus needed to look her in the eye, needed to understand how someone could be so cruel to an innocent child. He told Maya she didn't have to come, that he could handle this alone. But Maya insisted. She stole my life, grandfather. I deserve to be there. They drove to Beverly Hills on a cold Saturday morning. The mansion sat on a tree-lined street where houses cost millions and neighbors valued their privacy. Marcus had paid for this house without even knowing it. Every brick and window bought with money meant for his granddaughter. Patricia's Mercedes SUV sat in the driveway, gleaming and expensive. Marcus's Tesla pulled up behind it, and he, Maya, Jason, and attorney Thomas Kim got out. Marcus rang the doorbell. Patricia answered, and the transformation on her face was almost comical. She had clearly expected a delivery, or perhaps a neighbor. Instead, she found herself staring at Marcus Chun, the man she had been lying to for 18 years. Then she saw Maya standing beside him, no longer the discarded girl in donated clothes, but a young woman in a proper coat and boots, standing tall. The blood drained from Patricia's face. Her mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. "Hello, Patricia," Marcus said with cold courtesy. "I think we need to talk." Patricia tried to close the door, but Thomas was already pushing forward with legal authority. "Mrs. Martinez, you can speak with us now, or you can speak with the police. Your choice." They ended up in Patricia's living room, a space decorated with expensive furniture and contemporary art. Everything in this room had been purchased with stolen money, and the knowledge sat between them like poison. Patricia perched on the edge of a leather sofa, her hands twisting in her lap. She kept glancing at Maya as if she couldn't quite believe the girl had found her way back. "Marcus, please," Patricia started, her voice taking on a pleading tone. "Let me explain. It's not what you think." Marcus slammed the folder of bank statements onto the coffee table so hard that Patricia flinched. $2 million, he said, his voice deadly quiet. 18 years of monthly deposits. Every penny I sent to ensure my granddaughter had the life she deserved. Where is it, Patricia? Where's every single penny? Patricia's face had gone from pale to an ashen gray. Her hands trembled. "I used it for Maya's benefit," she said. But the lie sounded weak, even to her own ears. "Did you?" Marcus leaned forward. "Because my investigators tell a different story. They tell me you bought this house, those cars outside, sent your own children to private school, took vacations to Mexico every summer, all while my granddaughter wore donated clothes and slept in a homeless shelter. I gave her a place to live," Patricia protested. "I fed her. I kept a roof over her head for 18 years. That cost money." Maya spoke up for the first time, her voice steady despite the emotion underneath. "You kept me in a tiny apartment. You homeschooled me so I couldn't make friends or tell anyone how you treated me. You gave me your leftover food and hand-me-down clothes. You never let me leave except for grocery shopping. And when I turned 18, you threw me out with nothing. No documents, no money, no support. You told me to figure out my own life because you had done enough." Patricia's eyes flashed with anger, the mask finally dropping. "You ungrateful little girl. I took you in when no one else wanted you. I raised you when your grandfather was too busy making money to care about you." "That's a lie." Marcus's voice rose. "I called you every month. I asked about her. You told me she was doing well, that she was happy, that she didn't want to see me because it would confuse her. And you believed me." Patricia shot back. "You never bothered to check. You never demanded to see her. You were content to throw money at the problem and ease your guilty conscience. So don't act like you're some kind of hero now." The accusation stung because it held truth. Marcus had failed to verify, to insist, to do more than send checks. But that didn't excuse what Patricia had done. "You're right," Marcus said quietly. "I failed Maya by not doing more. I will have to live with that guilt for the rest of my life. But you deliberately stole from a child. You isolated her, neglected her, and threw her away when she was no longer useful. Why, Patricia? Why would you do this to an innocent child?" Something broke in Patricia's expression. Years of careful lies and justifications crumbled, and underneath was pure, ugly resentment. Because she had everything, Patricia spat. Beautiful Sophia with her perfect life. My brother loved her more than he ever loved me, his own sister. She got the education, the career, the husband who adored her. And then she died and left behind this child. And suddenly everyone cared about the baby. You sent money, lots of money, more money than I had ever seen. And I thought, why should this child have everything when my own children had so little? Why should Sophia's daughter have advantages my children never got? So you stole from a baby, Marcus said, his disgust evident. You saw a vulnerable infant and decided to use her as your meal ticket. You took money meant to give her opportunities and used it to build your own comfortable life, all while telling her she was worthless, that her own grandfather didn't want her. Patricia's face was splotchy now, tears of frustration and anger running down her cheeks. I gave her a place to live. That should be enough. She should be grateful. Maya stood up, her voice shaking but strong. Grateful? You want me to be grateful that you gave me scraps while you lived in luxury, bought with my money? You want me to be grateful that you lied to me about my grandfather, made me think I was alone in the world? You want me to be grateful that you threw me out to survive on the streets the moment I turned 18? Before Patricia could respond, Thomas made a phone call. Within 15 minutes, police arrived. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, witness statements from neighbors who remembered the quiet girl they rarely saw. Patricia was arrested on charges of embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, and child endangerment. As officers led Patricia out in handcuffs, her two children came down the stairs, alerted by the commotion. They were teenagers now, 15 and 17, and they watched in confusion and horror as their mother was taken away. They had lived well, attended good schools, never wanted for anything, and they had no idea it was all built on stolen money and a cousin's suffering. Marcus made arrangements for those children to stay with their maternal aunt. They were innocent in this, victims of their mother's choices. He would ensure they were cared for, even though his priority was Maya. The trial happened faster than most because the evidence was overwhelming. Financial analysis left no room for doubt. Bank employees testified about how Patricia had set up the account, claiming Maya had special needs and couldn't manage her own money. Neighbors testified about the isolated girl they sometimes glimpsed. Mrs. Rodriguez testified about the state Maya was in when she arrived at the shelter, malnourished, traumatized, with no resources or support. And Maya herself testified. She sat in that courtroom and told her story with quiet dignity. She explained the years of isolation, the minimal care, the lies about her grandfather. She described being thrown out with nothing on her 18th birthday. She talked about sleeping in parks and libraries before finding the shelter. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Patricia to 12 years in federal prison and ordered full restitution of $2 million plus interest and damages. Her assets were seized. The house, the cars, everything purchased with stolen money. The funds recovered were placed in a new trust for Maya, this time properly protected with oversight and safeguards. 6 months passed. Maya enrolled at UCLA, studying computer science with a focus on educational technology. She wanted to create learning tools for underserved communities, to help others who had faced similar struggles, to be the advocate she never had. She lived with Marcus, and they slowly built the relationship they should have had all along. Marcus taught her about business, about their family history, about the strong line of ancestors who had overcome obstacles to build better lives. He introduced her to distant relatives who welcomed her with open arms. Maya discovered she had cousins, aunts, uncles, a whole family tree she never knew existed. She learned about her mother through stories and videos, through photo albums and saved letters. Sophia became real to her in a way that single photograph never could. And Marcus learned about Maya, her intelligence, her compassion, her surprising sense of humor. She loved old movies and spicy food and had a talent for coding. She was studying hard, but also learning to relax, to trust that she didn't have to earn every meal or prove her worth to deserve basic care. One Saturday morning, Maya asked Marcus to drive her somewhere. She directed him back to East LA, to Hope Haven Shelter. Mrs. Rodriguez greeted them at the door with a huge smile and tight hugs. Maya had been volunteering there every weekend, helping other young women navigate resources and opportunities. She understood their struggles because she had lived them. But today was special. Maya had worked with Marcus to establish a scholarship fund for shelter residents who wanted to pursue education. The Sophia Chin Second Chance Scholarship would cover tuition, books, housing, and support services for young women aging out of foster care or experiencing homelessness. The first 3 recipients stood nervously in Mrs. Rodriguez's office as Maya presented them with award letters. Marcus watched his granddaughter comfort these young women, share her story, and offer hope. This was who Sophia would have been, someone who took her pain and transformed it into purpose. After the presentation, Marcus and Maya drove to the cemetery where Sophia was buried. They stood before her grave, a simple but elegant headstone that Marcus had visited countless times over the years. Today felt different. Today, he wasn't coming alone with his grief and failure. Today, he had brought his granddaughter home. "I found her, baby girl," Marcus said softly, placing fresh flowers on the grave. "Our Maya. She's everything you would have wanted her to be. Strong, kind, brilliant. She survived things no child should face. and she came through it with grace. Maya placed her own flowers next to Marcus's. She pulled out a photo, the first one of her and Marcus together, taken at her UCLA orientation. "Hi, Mom," she whispered. "I finally got to meet Grandfather. I finally got to come home. I wish you were here, but I feel you with me. I feel you in every kind thing Grandfather does, every story he tells about you. I promise to make you proud." That evening, back at the penthouse, Maya sat at Marcus's desk working on an essay for one of her classes. The assignment was to write about a transformative experience. She had been writing for an hour, words flowing easily now that she had so much to say. Marcus brought her tea the way she liked it, with honey and lemon. He kissed the top of her head like his own father used to do, like he should have been doing for 18 years. "Don't stay up too late," he said. "You have that study group in the morning." "I won't," Maya promised, smiling up at him. "Good night, Grandfather." "Good night, sweetheart." Marcus walked to his own room, his heart fuller than it had been in decades. He had lost so much time, made so many mistakes, but he had been given something precious, a second chance. A chance to be the grandfather he should have been from the start. A chance to watch Maya grow into the remarkable woman she was becoming. A chance to turn his failure into redemption. In her essay, Maya wrote about survival and resilience. She wrote about the moment everything changed, the day a stranger walked into a shelter kitchen and revealed he was her grandfather. She wrote about learning that she hadn't been forgotten or abandoned, that someone had been fighting for her all along, even if he didn't know he needed to. She wrote about the trial and watching justice finally catch up to cruelty. But mostly she wrote about hope, about learning that your worth isn't determined by how people treat you, but by who you choose to become despite everything. The essay ended with a line that would later become her personal motto. The money was never what mattered. It was being seen, being loved, being given the chance to become who I was meant to be. Maya saved the document and closed her laptop. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Los Angeles glittered below like a field of stars. Somewhere out there were other young women like her, struggling in shelters, or worse, believing they were alone. But they weren't alone. Maya will make sure of that. She would use her story, her education, her resources to be the voice they needed. She would advocate and fight and refuse to let others be invisible the way she had been. Because she understood something profound now. Suffering can either break you or forge you into something stronger. Isolation can either destroy you or teach you the power of connection. Being knocked down can either keep you there or show you how to rise with more purpose than before. Maya chose to rise. She chose to transform her pain into purpose, her trauma into testimony, her survival into service. And in doing so, she honored the mother she never knew, the grandfather who found her just in time, and the countless others who weren't as lucky. The scholarship fund grew. More young women received second chances. More lives were changed. And in a penthouse high above the city, a grandfather and granddaughter built the relationship they had been denied. One conversation, one shared meal, one precious moment at a time. Epilogue. Maya's story reminds us that justice isn't just about punishment. It's about restoration. It's about taking what was stolen and building something better. Patricia took 18 years from Maya, but she couldn't take her spirit, her intelligence, or her capacity for grace. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Marcus's position. And remember to subscribe because we bring you real stories about real people overcoming impossible odds. Sometimes the family that's supposed to protect you becomes your greatest enemy. But sometimes, when you least expect it, family finds you again. And that's when healing begins. Thanks for watching. Until next time, remember, your worth isn't determined by who failed you. It's determined by how you rise after the fall.